Elle Potter with Yoga Buzz, and we are doing these interviews with different people around the country who are involved in yoga in different ways to learn about how they're changing their community and the global community with yoga. So I'm here today with Jivana Heyman, who is the founder of Accessible Yoga. He's based out of Santa Barbara. He also is the co-owner of the Santa Barbara Yoga Center and the manager of the San Francisco Integral Yoga Institute. And he's a dad, so he's a busy fella. So hello, Jivana.
Hi. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I learned about what you're doing with Accessible Yoga. I stumbled across information about the first annual Accessible Yoga Conference that you hosted in Santa Barbara was that September?
hmm
And then I've been following along since then, and I'm looking forward to attending it this fall. But talk about your background in yoga first.
Okay. I'm glad you can come this September to
Me
the
too.
conference. Let's see, my background, I actually did yoga with my grandmother when I was a little kid. She was kind of ahead of her time, and that's what started. But then after college, I kind of stumbled into yoga again, and it was actually during the AIDS epidemic, and I'm a gay man, and during that whole time, my friends were sick, and some died, including my best friend actually, who died in 1995. And that was really a turning point for me, being involved with all of that illness and death at a really young age. I mean, it just was unusual, I think, for someone in their early 20s to be in the middle of that. And so I had yoga for myself, I was practicing and I started teaching, and immediately it just seemed like I should bring those teachings to that community. So that's what I did. I started teaching yoga for the HIV/AIDS community in San Francisco. I taught at the Integral Yoga Institute and at local hospitals, and then I got involved with other communities that were similar. I found that work really inspiring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what led you, because you've definitely, you're creating a connection for a really diverse group of yogis who are reaching out to different communities that are often underrepresented and underserved
Yeah.
with practices of health and wellness and mindfulness. And so what sort of triggered the idea for the Accessible Yoga conference?
Okay. Yeah, so then I was living in the Bay Area for about 25 years, and I had a strong community there through Integral Yoga. And then about 2.5 years ago, I moved to Santa Barbara, mostly for my kids' schools and stuff. So it's a beautiful town, but it's a small town, and I didn't have a community here, and so I had this realization that most people are kind of like that, like they're out there in the world, trying to share yoga, at least most teachers trying to share yoga on their own, and they don't really have a network of other teachers or a community to support them in that work, and especially teachers who are working to share yoga with communities that don't have access, which is really what my passion is. So I had the idea of let's create a forum or a platform for those teachers to come together and to build a community to support them. I think because the people working in these areas, of sharing yoga with people who don't have access or people with disabilities or chronic illness, they're very devoted. They're really, karma yogis. They're serving. So one of the main ideas of the conference was to create like a preview of different trainings that are available in the world of accessible yoga.
For yoga teachers who want to connect with specific populations and teach accessible yoga, understanding that different communities have different needs, different individuals have
Yeah.
unique needs. What would you say is like the biggest consideration for a teacher kind of across the board?
That is a good question.
Yeah. If you
I,
could distill it down into like one
yeah,
little nugget.
one thing. Wow. I think yoga is such a powerful practice, such a powerful group of practices and tools that can change lives. And I guess my real passion is the basic idea that everyone deserves the access to those teachings. So that's kind of where I come from. That no matter what ability you have physically, or even mentally, that you have access to um, make your life better. Because I think what's so beautiful about yoga is it offers people um, peace and the relief from stress and worry and anxiety. I mean, these are things that are, it's like a huge problem in our society and all over the world. You know, it's that calm you get after yoga, that there's really nothing like it. And I just think, to me, that's what I want to share with people. And I think that it's a very empowering experience to be able to use tools to find that in yourself. There's a misunderstanding in our, at least in Western culture, about what yoga is as a physical practice mainly. And I think that is incorrect. You know, we use the physical, but it's actually a much more subtle practice that really deals with the mind. And I think that's where the real benefits come. I think the main teaching I would give to a teacher who wants to bring yoga to a special community or a community that hasn't been served with yoga is to realize that each person that you meet is completely worthy. That, like you said, that is exactly the perfect word to make it to say, is worthiness. And each person actually has what they need inside. You know, that's the other teaching of yoga that is so important to me and that I come back to all the time in my life, is that we have what we need inside. That's what yoga teaches us. And actually, my teacher is Swami Satchidananda. He's the founder of Integral Yoga. That's where my lineage is from. He used to say that yoga is about undoing what we've learned. You know, that's the funny thing. It makes me crack up. It's about, you know, just undoing all these ideas about should, you know, what I should be, or what I have made myself into, like these constructs we have in our mind. And actually, if you get back to a place of kind of, I don't know, like peacefulness or quietness, that there's peace there automatically.
Yeah.
You know, in Shavasana, like at the end of a class, if you just are totally quiet, that's where the answer is. The fact is, if you have a mind, you can do yoga. It's not about what your body can do, right? If you can meditate, you're doing yoga.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that is so important in traditional yoga practice is community.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's often lost in popular yoga these days. And that traditionally, you know, people who are yogis would live at ashrams, and that, it sounds corny, but again, that's what yoga grew out of, this community. An ashram is a community of people that were practicing together. And I just found for myself that when I have community, it makes my practice so much stronger. You know, when I hang out with other yogis who are dedicated and they're practicing, that makes me want to do it.
Yeah, that's my favorite. My closest friends as an adult have been made through yoga somehow, you know, and so creating communities, whether it's with Yoga Buzz here in St. Louis or what you're doing with Accessible Yoga, that's creating a global network. It's a way to feel less alone in the work that that yoga teachers are doing, trying to, because it's difficult to be like using yoga as a tool for social activism, and it's good to have a network and know that we're all in this together, really, and we have to do our own internal work so that we can do external work as a network of, or as a community of people.
Exactly, and I think that's what accessible yoga is really about. It's about shifting the perspective in terms of what is yoga and who can do it, but also it's about the community. I think that's the second half. You know, it's about building that community internationally. And actually, what I think it is that they found yoga helpful for themselves. And it's like I always feel like I got this great present, like I got this great gift, and I want to share it with other people. It's like if I just keep it to myself, it doesn't feel as good as actually sharing it with other people and seeing how much they enjoy it too. I mean, there's nothing greater than that. Like teaching is an incredible experience for that reason.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I mean, I always tell people right away, like don't do this just because you want a job teaching yoga. Like that's not a reason. You know, you do it for your own personal practice or because you want to do a little bit of teaching.
Right.
And you want to serve a special community.
Yep.
And I would say, I think that's great that you're making that part of your 200 hour, because really the accessible yoga teacher training is more graduate level, people who've done a 200 hour, you know, and kind of helping them hone in on how can I share yoga with a special population or with other people? Because you start to see when you're teaching that it may not be prepared to teach everyone who walks in the room.
Right.
And that's my goal in my trainings is to really help people be prepared for like really anyone who walks in. How can I serve them to the
Yeah,
best of my ability to have
absolutely.
those tools
And
available?
that's a really advanced way of teaching, I think,
Yeah,
is to be able to have a group in the room and everybody's different, and how do I meet the needs of everybody in that room as best as possible, as best as
yeah,
I can. And it
yeah.
ultimately means I have to be aware of every person in that room.
I mean, really, ultimately, that's the goal for me in
Yeah.
accessible yoga is not just bringing yoga to special populations, but actually beginning to integrate communities so that we're
Yes.
all practicing together.
Yeah.
But eventually, I think we need to shift that whole experience to be more community based. Like, you know what, we can all practice together. And it's okay if one person does something one way and another does it another way.
Yeah.
One is not more advanced than the other,
Yeah.
actually. And that's another huge misunderstanding in the yoga world about what advanced means.
Mm-hmm.
Complicated asana is not necessarily more advanced.
Right.
Right? You can't really know what's going on in someone's mind, but advanced yoga is when the mind is quiet.
Yeah.
When they're
Yeah.
in peace and there's stillness going on inside. And that's something that you only really know yourself. So whoever walks into the class, I'm not greater than or less than that person. We're all equals. That's yoga is like a great equalizer to me,
Yeah.
right? The teachings say that we all have peace inside, and that peace is actually the same in all of us. That
Yeah.
spirit is there in all of us. So if we can see that in every one of our students, then I think they'll come back. I think they'll come back.
Oh, that's perfect. That is the nugget. I would agree with you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But it's incredible how applicable these teachings are today. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that they were written like 2,500 years ago, possibly, and yet it's completely works now. It's like the same concepts we're struggling
Still
with.
relevant. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Thank you so much. This was such a great chat, and I'm really excited to share this with our community here in St. Louis, and for you to share this discussion with your accessible yoga people as well.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks so much for having me. And I hope people get involved in the June 21st, focusing on International Day of Yoga and making that more accessible.
Yeah.
And maybe come to the conference in September. Yeah, and thank you for all of the great work you're doing. It sounds
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
good to know there's other people doing it too.
Yeah. Thanks so much.